Hello! So in my last video I announced a new project I'm working on, which is looking at this book, Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. In it, Steven Pinker claims that the past 250 years we have made unprecedented human progress, and before looking into that in more detail, which is going to take up the next few months really, and we'll get started proper in the next video, I wanted to reread quite a different book, though it covers much the same territory, which is this, The Master and His Emissary by Iain McGilchrist. And yeah, he kind of disagrees, I think, with what Pinker takes to be progress. So it's kind of useful, I think, just to summarize what his argument is. So most of this book, McGilchrist talks about his theory between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So he says we have a divided brain, even though almost every activity we do, any specific skill we have, uses both sides of the brain. There are nonetheless very generalized functions of each hemisphere, which very much map onto what I've spoken about previously at length in terms of the distinction between control and connection. So our left hemisphere is all about trying to control and manipulate objects. It's about certainty, it's about security, it's about categorizing things, having systemized knowledge, and trying to make kind of quantifiable progress in the world. And in contrast, right hemisphere, according to McGilchrist, is all about trying to understand the complex and contextual nature of reality. It's not really quantifiable. Much of it is qualitative understanding within any given context, within any given period of time or place. What can we perceive to be actually the case? So it's much more about sort of connection and openness to uncertainty rather than control and kind of fixing rigid categories over things. So that's the sort of distinction that McGilchrist argues at length for in the first half of this book. And in the second part, he really applies this template between this sort of divided brain to the past 2,500 years of human history. So he goes much further back than Pinker does in Enlightenment Now in that respect. And he really identifies three kind of golden ages in which the right hemisphere, the hemisphere more concerned with connection, with intuition, with complexity, where that thrived in human history. So he speaks about kind of pre-Socratic ancient Greece. He talks about the Renaissance, and he talks about the Romantic period. And in all these periods, according to McGilchrist, you can see from the cultural outputs that he analyzes that people had a deep sense of connection with their bodies, with their mind, with their intuition. In fact, there wasn't this typical distinction we make between body and mind nowadays. People have a deep connection with their histories in terms of like cultural tradition. People have a deep connection with nature and the natural world. And also people have a deep connection with what might be called the human condition, the sort of darker sides of life, with tragedy and melancholy and death and loss. And in comparison, McGilchrist talks about these other periods of history, such as the Roman Empire, which took over from ancient Greece, and then the Reformation and the Enlightenment after the Renaissance period, and then modernity and post-modernity after the Romantic, or kind of simultaneous with the Romantic period. And he says that in these periods, instead, we became very much disconnected with our bodies, with history, with the natural world, and instead we're very much concerned with logic, with knowledge, with bureaucratization, with trying to really kind of control and dominate our environment or other people in order to make quantifiable progress. So this is the kind of progress and the kind of virtues that Pinker goes on to talk about and to say are so wonderful. So that's reason and science, yeah, McGilchrist sees this as clearly valuable, but in his analysis of history, which I strongly suggest you should check out, though it is quite a weighty book, he sees that these periods are clearly valuable. We have made, like Pinker claims, unprecedented progress in life expectancy, in medicine, in food production, all sorts of things like that. And we now have a tremendous amount of choice and freedom in our lives, so we can live wherever we want, we can marry and spend time with whoever we want, we can do whatever we want for work, or at least, you know, many more people can nowadays. But what McGilchrist is at pains to kind of point out is that, you know, what good is it being able to live any way you want if you have lost connection with your place, or lost connection with your community? What good is it to be friends with, or to be a spouse with whoever we want, if we have so much choice and freedom that we're unable now to form committed, intimate relationships? What good is it to be whatever we want, to do whatever work we want, if we've lost touch with the kind of intuitive, skillful activities and sense of mastery that used to give us purpose and meaning in life? In general, what good is it to live longer and healthier, happier lives if those lives are shallow, where we are constantly trying to seek out novel experiences, not to be bored, something that he sees as really originating from the Enlightenment onwards, this desire for novelty to cure boredom. Yeah, what good is it to have these kind of long and shallow lives? Would we not prefer, if we had the choice, to have shorter but more deeper, more meaningful, connected lives? So that's very much where McGilchrist is coming from, and I thought it's just, I personally wanted to refresh my reading of McGilchrist and some various other critiques of Pinker that I've come across, and not for the purpose of saying, oh, this is why Pinker is wrong, and I don't want this video to be about that. I just wanted to have that kind of fresh in my mind as we read, as we go through all this progress that Pinker quite effectively shows we have made, just to kind of really get this feel for the depth of that progress. So we might have made these huge quantifiable leaps in various material conditions and various aspects of progress, but what do they kind of ultimately boil down to when it comes for leading meaningful, rich lives? What does it mean when it comes to progress that is inclusive of not just humans but also the natural world? What does it mean in terms of the progress we have made in light of the atrocities of the past, in light of the injustices that might have been a part of our journey to that progress? So it's that depth that I want to look at throughout reading Pinker's stuff, and I'm indebted to Iain McGilchrist for really emphasising that in his kind of tour de force throughout the making of the Western world. So thanks to Iain. I strongly suggest you go and check it out, and look forward to diving into Pinker next week. Cheers.